Sometimes if you can't be anything, you should be consistent. Because how are people meant to take what you're doing seriously if you can't maintain the path that you're on? Let's talk about consistency. This is Raw Graded. This is Pablo, but this is Raw Graded. You go in. We open with a moment of bliss. Alexa Bliss with a doll in a birdcage. Theories on that in the comments below. Welcome Randy Orton to the show. Randy Orton reflects on last week's loss to AJ Styles and talks about how he and the Fiend are quite similar. They both hear voices. They're both tortured souls. But Randy Orton was able to find a weakness in Bray Wyatt and burn it to the ground. Of course, referring to the compound from many moons ago, which they keep referring to, which is nice. He says he needs to find a weakness in the Fiend, and he thinks he has, staring at Alexa Bliss. And Bliss asks, who is manipulating who? Then all the lights go out, and when the red light comes on, the Fiend is in the ring, and Randy Orton has Alexa Bliss in his arms. And then we see the Fiend slowly walk towards Orton and put his arms out. And Randy Orton drops Alexa Bliss into the Fiend's waiting arms and gets the heck out of there. Looks as if Randy Orton, as he's smiling away, has found a little secret to the Fiend, maybe. Giving this a B+, I liked Orton's mic work here. Alexa Bliss has been really good in this role as the evil version of Alexa Bliss. I've really enjoyed it. And yeah, it was an interesting new wrinkle to Bray Wyatt and the Fiend, obviously. First match of the night is the Symphony of Destruction match. The ringside area basically becomes a guitar store. I'm worried that any moment somebody is going to start selling Jeff Hardy a Strat and talking down to him. We start off with Elias and Jeff Hardy in the ring. Very briefly, it's head straight outside where Jeff goes for a dive off of the steel steps and eats a big knee to the face. Elias lifts up a grand piano and inside is R-Truth, hiding away from challengers for the 24/7 title. This brings out the 24/7 division, Benny Hill-esque sequence as R-Truth legs it, and Elias and Jeff Hardy batter a few of those chasing him before we go to break. Come back from the break and the match continues with Elias taking over on Jeff Hardy, using guitar picks as like a rudimentary knuckle duster for quite a creative little moment there. The fight goes outside the ring. We see Elias try and stab Jeff Hardy with a guitar, only to get electrocuted by a speaker quite randomly. Then we see Jeff Hardy put Elias onto a table outside the ring, put a lot of string instruments on top, and hits a swanton bomb from the top turnbuckle post to the ground, and I swear it looks like he smacks his head on the ring steps as he goes down. It looked grim. Thankfully, he was all right. He picked up the win and then headed off playing the tambourine. And that is the last of their feud. And you know what? It's not a bad way to go out. I'm giving it a B+. There was some good moments in this match. I thought the commentators having a bit of a chuckle party at some of these kind of took away from some of the seriousness of some of the bits in there. And that finish was a bit, geez, very concerned for the well-being of Jeff Hardy. As I have been most of his career in that particular moment. But you know what? It's the best match they've had as a rivalry. And if that's the end, I'm over the moon. Ricochet takes on SLAPJACK next. We get a recap of the last couple of weeks. Ricochet's feud with Retribution. He's turned down their offers to join, so now they're basically going to beat him up. This is Ricochet dominating this, although the only time SLAPJACK gets a look in is when Ricochet looks off to Mustafa Ali. That gives SLAPJACK a brief opening, but Ricochet pushes back each and every time. Eventually, Ali calls for the other Retribution members to make their way out to the ring. Ricochet wipes them all out with a dive. As that's happening, Ali gets confronted by Dana Brooke, who slaps him across the face, shouting at him and all this stuff. Back in the ring, Ricochet is fighting off all the members of Retribution, and he ends up eating what kind of looks like a wheelbarrow fisherman buster from SLAPJACK. Nice little finish for the 1, 2, 3. Given the match, though, a C. Like, Retribution looked weak again here. Like, even though they got the win, you do so in a way where it takes your entire team to shut down Ricochet, who Mustafa Ali beat relatively clean a few weeks ago. There was a tiny bit of shenanigans, but not to this level. And then Dana Brooke turning up and slapping Ali and then disappearing again. It was just no, it was the match itself was fine, just very inconsistent everywhere. Miz TV up next with Sheamus. Later on tonight, Miz and Morrison face best friends in the world, which if it isn't a harbinger for a heel turn, I don't know what is. Sheamus and Drew McIntyre. But it's just Sheamus out for Miz TV, and they're trying to get in the head of Sheamus here, suggesting, hey, you know what? You got that great gift for Drew McIntyre. You got him that Claymore and those family heirlooms. But what did Drew get for you? Did he get you anything? And Sheamus says, well, no, he didn't, because it's a gift, and laughs off the idea that Miz wants Sheamus's help to knock down Drew and become the champion later on tonight. This just lights a fire under Miz, who gets in Sheamus's face, screaming about how he's done nothing for years, hasn't had a sniff of a WWE title or a world title. Sheamus gets fed up of being talked down to by Miz and ends up just clattering Miz and Morrison. But the numbers game has him, and he ends up getting beaten up and battered by the Money in the Bank briefcase at the end of Miz TV. This one, not a bad Miz TV segment. I'm giving it a B. I'm enjoying the build to what is no doubt going to be Sheamus turning on Drew. We're getting there. We're getting there. You know? And I quite enjoyed that little element of the fact that Sheamus got beaten up here. No sign of Drew McIntyre. They didn't reference it on commentary, which I was pleased with. But it's those little subtle things that they can drop in as time goes on. Asuka and Lana teaming up once again to take on Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler next. Shayna and Jax are in a little bit of a disagreement because they believe that Shayna is the one responsible for the loss last week. Nia is upset with her, and there's tension going into this match. Lana actually starts off wrestling with Baszler, gets an early pinfall attempt on her before tagging out to Asuka. Asuka runs wild, but as both Asuka and Lana go for stereo baseball slides onto Jax and Baszler, they eat stereo pendulum breakers, sending them flying into the barricade several times to go to break. Lana's getting beaten up after the break, and eventually she manages to find a little sneaky way out when she pushes Nia Jax into the turnbuckle post, makes the tag to Asuka. Asuka runs wild for ages. Lana recovers, but the moment she gets tagged back into the match, she succumbs to Shayna Baszler's clutch. She gets taken to the ground, but then there's Asuka, slides in with a big knee to Shayna Baszler's face. Lana falls on top, and Lana pins Shayna Baszler in this match. And Asuka and Shayna head off up the ramp as they celebrate their victory. I've given it a C. It was fine. It wasn't great. It was fine. I feel like we were going to get Lana versus Nia Jax at TLC. I feel like this might become a tag team table affair now, since Asuka doesn't have anything else really going on other than this. I think she's capable and certainly deserving of more, but I think that's where we're going. No sooner have I said I like the fact they didn't acknowledge that Drew didn't save Sheamus. They do a skip backstage where they acknowledge that Drew didn't come to save Sheamus. Sheamus and Drew McIntyre chatting, and Sheamus very passive-aggressive about the fact that Drew McIntyre didn't come out and help him when he got beaten up earlier on, but Drew's like, hey, look, we're friends, it's all cool, you got a fire in your belly now, let's go and fight. And Sheamus is like, yeah, we'll go and fight him, so friends for now. It's coming. It's coming. Now, because I can see that coming, it's not a bad thing. Like, I think the general belief is because something is predictable, it's bad. That's not the case. Like, I like the storytelling here. I like how it's Sheamus and Drew's friendship that we're seeing more in front of camera. So when it happens, it's all going to click into place. I like it. Xavier Woods taking on Cedric Alexander next. We hear from the New Day, who, via the power of dream sequences, they recap their rivalry with the Hurt Business. And since Xavier Woods is now the new host of G4, he uses his newfound announcing and commentating skills to talk us through the last couple of weeks. The dream sequence stuff was played up by the Hurt Business, who then come out. MVP talking a lot about dreams being shattered, dreams turning into nightmares. Cedric Alexander rushes into the ring, gets in Xavier Woods' face, and the match starts when Xavier Woods gets jumped by Cedric Alexander before the bell, Back from break, the match has started, but Cedric's been in control, very aggressively so. Xavier Woods keeps trying to fight back into it, but Cedric keeps shutting him down. The finish comes when we see Cedric Alexander dive outside the ring to wipe out Xavier Woods. Woods sort of gets back into it by throwing Cedric back into the ring first, but then he eats a lumbar check for the 1, 2, 3. Cedric Alexander picking up a win over Xavier Woods. He celebrates, runs off up the ramp on his own, cheering about how brilliant he is, as MVP and Shelton Benjamin just sort of stand in the ring going like, where's he going? Why isn't he hanging out with us? This is a decent enough match between both Xavier Woods and Cedric Alexander. Cedric standing tall at the end on his own, sort of making distance between himself and the Hurt Business. I think it's a really cool little story that they're starting to tell there. I like that. Keith Lee versus Riddle versus AJ Styles. The winner will face Iron Drew at TLC 2020. Keith goes for a dive early on, but Riddle and Styles separate like the Red Sea to avoid that happening. Eventually, Keith is dominant in this match, gets shut down by Riddle just before they go to the break, because we see AJ Styles not only hitting a running knee off the apron, assisted by bodyguard Omos, but then we also see Riddle hitting a beauty of a Fosbury flop before the break. Riddle tries to armbar Keith Lee, but Keith is too strong, and he starts using Riddle as a weapon just to beat AJ Styles with, which is a fun segment, which is a fun little spot. I did enjoy that. Riddle goes to powerbomb Keith Lee at one point, but his back gives out. But AJ Styles comes flying off the rope, hits a crossbody for a near fall from that. Great back and forth with everybody here. Moves getting countered and spun around by everybody involved. We then see Riddle and Keith fighting alone in the ring. Big Grizzly Magnum slap. Big Riddle final flash takes Keith to the outside. And just as that happens, AJ Styles bursts into existence. Phenomenal forearm, flies into shot, lands on Riddle. 1, 2, 3. AJ Styles is the #1 contender for the WWE title. This was an A. Best match of the night so far. Hands down. Excellent work from all three. This just felt like a fresh, creative match from start to finish. And AJ Styles and Drew McIntyre is a fresh match. Like, I'm more like, Braun Strowman's injury, get well soon, Braun. But I feel like that was a blessing, really, because Braun could take some time off to rehab some niggling injuries as well as his knee injury. And we get a really fresh match heading out of the year between Drew McIntyre and AJ Styles. I ain't got no complaints. Dana Brooke takes on Reckoning next. Dana Brooke upset with the attack by Reckoning a couple of weeks ago. That's why we are here. Mustafa Ali angry at Dana Brooke getting in his face and slapping him earlier on, and Reckoning is coming and all this stuff. This match falls off the rails immediately because as they fight in the corner, Reckoning's mask falls off. Just falls off, hits the ground, and instead of maybe working in a spot where she can roll out of the ring and put the mask back on, they just go, sod it, we'll wrestle without the mask, which is what they do. And it's a very basic match. There's a rest hold from Reckoning. Are we still calling it Reckoning? It's blatantly Mia Yim. Like, not that the mask hid anything. Not like Clark Kent and his glasses. Like, it was always Mia Yim. But do we start calling her Mia Yim now? We'll keep calling her Reckoning. Reckoning wearing down Dana Brooke with rest holds, but Dana fights back into this. Mustafa Ali tries to run interception, but in the shenanigans of that, we see Dana Brooke get a roll-up on Reckoning for the 3. Dana Brooke wins. Ali chews out Reckoning, and Reckoning looks very sad about the whole thing. Oh, this was a D. This was a stinker. Oh, I'm gutted for Mia Yim. Like, really am gutted. Like a big showcase match. She's been doing some promo stuff building up to this. Mask falls off immediately. And then she loses. Like, despite the involvement of Mustafa Ali, she loses the match. And in pretty quick order. The booking with Retribution is so wildly inconsistent that they don't stand a chance at this point. I've been trying to be the better obscure company when it comes to Retribution because I love the concept of these guys that have been outcast by the company who are trying to break it down from within. Now, on paper, doesn't that sound cool? Somebody with like the intel backstage who can get them places and can break down certain competitors and get involved in certain. Doesn't that sound cool on paper? But this is This fell off the rails so, not just the match, but the whole thing. It's fallen off the rails so badly, and I feel like they'll keep trying to recover it, but at this point, I feel like it's a bit of a spent force at this point. You know, the toothpaste is out of the tube when it comes to Retribution, and it's very difficult to get the toothpaste back in, you know? Gutted. Miz and Morrison congratulate AJ Styles on his win, on his top contendership, and they baked him a pie. Oh boy, what flavour? Pie flavour. No, it's peach, because Georgia, innit? AJ Styles knows why they're there. They're there to try and get him on side to help him win the title off Drew, and AJ says, yeah, fine, I will help Miz cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase and become WWE champion, because it'll be easier for me to beat Miz than it will be to beat Drew. So I like that as a setup. Like, AJ just wants to win the title, doesn't really give a damn who he beats for it. So it's like, yeah, I could beat you, Miz, that's fine, I'll help you. And you can tell there's some concern on the face of Miz here. And John Morrison pretty much agrees off the bat as well, which was rather funny. Riddle and MVP are backstage. Riddle is still pitching some ideas for the Hurt Business to MVP. There's some gardening suggestions in there, and there's some food for those who like to partake. But MVP just shuts them down, says that he's a putz. He pie faces him. Riddle gets into MVP's face, and then here comes Lashley with the Hurt Lock. Just takes down Riddle with the full Nelson. See you soon, mate. I reckon Riddle and Lashley, Riddle becoming US champion, that'll probably be a way that we go. And so we come to main event o'clock. It is Drew McIntyre and Sheamus versus The Miz and John Morrison. Charlie Caruso interviews Drew before the match starts. Drew talks about Roman Reigns, says he may have won the battle, but the war is far from over. See you at WrestleMania, mate. Whoa. That could be a thing. That could be a thing. He then talks about AJ Styles, referring to the match as phenomenal, and they're just planting a couple of seeds for lots of things here. Sheamus joins him in the ring, and then we have Miz and Morrison making their way to the ring. AJ Styles on commentary for this, and the majority of this is just Drew and Sheamus having a lovely time beating up Miz and Morrison. Sheamus just clatters both lads at the start. Drew tags himself in, which you can see perturbs Sheamus. And then Drew starts throwing them around again, and then he invites Sheamus back into the match. Back and forth they go. Sheamus randomly gets in the face of AJ Styles, so they head out to the ring. Obviously, there's still some bad blood flowing over from Survivor Series between them. So as Sheamus and Styles are getting in each other's grill, John Morrison does a baseball slide dropkick through the ropes and sends Sheamus flying over the announce table. After the break, Sheamus is getting beaten down by Miz and Morrison, manages to land a quick knee to kind of turn the tide in this one, gets the tag to Drew, who lights the place up, beats everyone up again. Sheamus wants a tag, but Morrison pulls Sheamus off of the apron, throws him over the barricade into the crowd. And then AJ Styles once again bursting into existence with a phenomenal forearm. The referee calls for a disqualification. And then you got Miz, Morrison and Styles beating down Drew. And then the briefcase comes into play. AJ handing the briefcase to the ref on behalf of the Miz. Miz takes a little bit of question, doesn't like that at all. He's not a fan of that. But then AJ says, look, he's down. Cash it in and win the belt. And then Miz goes, fine, I want to cash it in. But by that point, it's too late. Drew's power has gone back up to 100. He ends up knocking Miz and Morrison out of the ring. He's sizing up AJ Styles. Styles rolls out of the ring into the waiting arms of Omos, who carries him to the back as he's pointing and screaming at Drew the whole way, saying, you got lucky, yeah, you got lucky, I'll get you, I'll have you, I know your dad, and all of this stuff. And that's the last thing we see on Monday Night Raw this week. For the main event, I'm going to give it a B. Fun knockabout main event, like the Money in the Bank cash-in tease there as well. That was good times. And I quite like the visual of AJ being carried out on the shoulders of Omos. I thought that was quite a funny kind of comedy visual. I don't think it harms AJ. I think it's a bit of silliness, but I still think AJ and Drew will be a solid match and a solid competition at TLC. Yeah, it was good fun. Overall this week, Raw was a B- for me. Now that B- mainly comes from a couple of good to excellent in-ring moments, including the opening bit, which I really liked, with a moment of bliss. Enjoyed some of the singles matches on there. Like, I thought that Xavier Woods and Cedric had a good match. I thought the triple threat match was excellent. But there was stuff in there that just fell short for me. The Dana Brooke and Reckoning match being a particular low point of the night. Ricochet and SLAPJACK getting in there as well just fell a bit short. You know what? It's the Retribution stuff that drags this down. It's wildly inconsistent. That is the problem. You can't go full behind them at 1 week and then the following week kind of pull back a little bit and swap wins and losses out. Like, there is that lack of like laser focus on what you're doing with Retribution. And I feel like the horse might have bolted now. Like, I don't know what more you can do. There was rumor and innuendo that Braun Strowman might join Retribution, but I don't even think that would save Retribution at this point. I feel like it's a bit of a spent force. And I feel gutted saying that, because they could have done great things, they could have been a great gang, had it been for consistency. Now, if you want consistency on Monday Night Raw, how about the storytelling between Drew and Sheamus that they've been dropping in over the last couple of weeks? That's been good fun. Randy Orton throwing back to burning down the Wyatt compound as he's been doing for the last couple of weeks. That's consistency. You can do consistency, WWE. For whatever reason, with Retribution, you just choose not to. Stay safe. Love you, bye.